Okay.
Okay, we're good, Bill.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, Bill, go ahead.
All right, okay, sounds
Okay,
great.
planning and zoning first with manager's update, if you're okay with that.
Yes,
I just wanted to update you on two things. The Silversmith development, I haven't heard anything new on, but I did want to let you know that recently there's been interest in the Tribune Review on the property and the future of the Atom Smasher. I'm not sure exactly which is more important to them, but I spoke with one of their reporters about the Atom Smasher for a while, and he was also asking about Silversmith a little bit, and he was going to call him. I don't know if he ever did. He wanted to find out what the status was, and he also wanted to know about where things stood as far as taxes were concerned. And I mentioned to him that he needed to talk to Janet Sullivan. So as far as I know, he did that. I'm not sure if any information she would give him would have to come through Right to Know or not. She was supposed to check with Steve Corbel, but he wanted to get an idea of what the status was. Didn't sound like it was anything threatening, but I of course don't know. We had a good conversation. He and I, Jonathan Silver was his name, or is his name. So I just want to let you know that. I don't know if anything more will come of it, but at least you're aware of that.
They-
And I don't know anything more other than that. Go ahead, Bill.
yeah, did they do a full evaluation of to see if it had any type of operational abilities of anything, or is it something we can still mount and use as some type
Well,
of monument or something?
Yeah. Supposedly, everybody who's affiliated with Silversmith claims that they're going to put it back up. As far as any operational thing, really the bulb is just a big electrical. I mean, if you look inside of it, it just got nothing but electric. I want to say wire. That's probably not a good
No,
example.
it's not. It's
But
not operational as an atom
No.
smasher build. All of the electric interactive material has been taken out. What's left is the rebar frame around that the magnet turned inside of that. But that's all been taken out. All the moving parts are gone.
So the only thing we have,
There's a tremendous amount of steel in the rebar
right?
that wraps that bulb, which is why it's so heavy.
So the benefit to us to keeping it, is it because of historical ramifications, or that basically it? Okay.
Well, that's what Jonathan
Okay.
Silver and I were talking
Okay.
about, the fact that that it is historical. He was saying that because it was the first industrial atom smasher, he assumed that it would be important to people. And I explained to him that we are interested in having something done with it, but it's out of our hands because it's owned by Mr. Silversmith. So
Right.
I'm not sure where he's going with it, but that's all I know for right now. That just happened this week.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing I just wanted to remind you about, we still have some room for alternate members of the zoning hearing board. There are 2 spots open. It would be helpful to have that, just because, again, when the zoning hearing board meets, it usually has important business it's dealing with, and the alternate availability helps in case one of the regular members is not. And the planning commission does have 1 alternate spot left too. So we're still looking for that. That's all I have to report, unless anybody has anything for me or any questions.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Hello, Don. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Bill.
All right. You're on.
Okay, last month we discussed about the dead trees in the median. So I called or the PennDOT engineer, and they're going to approve replacing those trees, which there's 10 of them. And he's going to work with Joseph B. Fay Company and so forth, getting that straightened out. So that's where we stand with that. So I called our arborist And I had to pick his brain a little bit to find out which is the best time of the year to plant, either in the fall or the spring. And he said he has his most luck planting trees in the fall. So I don't know how you feel about that. If anybody has any ideas there, let me know. I will discuss this tomorrow with the Tree and Shrub Committee also. And I also asked him what he wanted to charge us for planting the trees, because I don't feel that last time they were planted, that they were planted properly. You got to put soil down in that hole, okay, and fill it with mulch also. And that's what he would do to plant the 10 trees. He wants $2,200. So I highly recommend that we go that way to try to prevent another failure in trees. Does anybody have any questions about that, or?
Question. Would DOT plan to reimburse us for that expense since it was their failure in the first place?
That I don't know. I'd have to check with them.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Pat. Yes, I agree with that.
Dawn, I have a couple of things, if I may, please.
Sure.
The first thing is the fall is an excellent time to plant trees, but I differ with having mulch in the hole. That's never a proper way. Perhaps on the outside, but never in the hole. Thank you.
Well, I think, Barb, what he meant was that he would pack it around the top of the outside with mulch, because the mulch holds the moisture.
Right, but make sure it's nowhere near the trunk or in the hole.
Right.
Okay,
right.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I'll check with him on that. But how does everybody feel about him planning it as opposed to having them plant it again? Joseph B. Fay, I don't think did a proper job in planting this tree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree with
We
that.
need-
I think DOT should definitely pay for the replacement of the trees.
Yeah.
The contractor did not provide for a proper planting in the first place. We shouldn't pay for it.
I agree,
Right.
Patty. I agree.
So if we do it, we send them a bill.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Corbin can enforce their payment, yeah?
That's all I have tonight.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Mhm.
We're done at committee business. Something about step repairs on Avenue B. Is it an uncertain topic, or should remain on tonight's agenda? I don't know. Anybody have any feelings about that? Step repairs on Avenue B?
It had been brought up before, but I didn't really remember if anything needed to be discussed or not. I think Ms. DeMarco brought it up
I
last
think
month.
that was on the, that is the grant for the repair of the steps, and I believe we have an authorization to proceed in motion for that. So engineering design work should be in process for that, and I think it's now under public safety for steps, or wherever you put active transportation stuff is where it would be. This is part of the implementation of the active transportation plan.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Patty. Okay, we're at the end of our presentation. Anything else for planning and development? Okay, well, thanks, and Steve, we're done.
Okay,
I'll take finance next.
I
Mr.
can move
Morris,
to,
would you please
yeah,
give a
as
report?
soon as I get it up here.
Yep.
I'm sorry, hold on one second. Okay, all right, I'm good to go with finance.
Okay,
I have several items to bring up. Every month I've been showing you the cash flow. And so I want to talk about that briefly. Let's see here. I want to show it. That's
it's
not the right
lowest
one.
it's been for 5
There we
years.
go. I show you the statistical chart again rather than the numbers. You have both. Once again, we still are lower including than last year, which was not a great year as far as cash was concerned and finishing. So it is something to be concerned about again. when you get to the treasury report, again, I have a number of items compared with 2022 that you can read on your own on my, on the agenda that I gave you. Basically, revenues are down going into August compared to last year, but so are expenses. So that does help to compensate some. I've asked staff to be careful again and to watch what we're doing about spending. And I usually do that as we get closer to the fall, suggest to them that they should really stop spending if they can help it on different things. But I really don't, I mean, these are pretty much the same numbers. I'm sorry, the same categories I showed you last month. It's something to be concerned about. It's something, it doesn't again mean that the borough is in desperate financial shape, but it means that the budget is not, the general fund budget is not doing well. And that's important again, because that's one thing that everybody looks at, the bond rating agencies and others. They all want to see copies of our audit report, usually, even sometimes when you go for a grant. And so while you may have money in other places, not having a balanced budget reflects poorly in any case, because it makes them wonder exactly how you're managing things, or you know, what's happening. So it's something to be concerned about, something to be aware of. Barb?
She has a hand up, Barb Martin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morris. I just had a question. I noticed that in your cash flow year-to-date note, it indicates that this total doesn't take into account the end of 2022 cash.
Yeah.
How much would that be?
I don't remember the exact number. I probably should have looked that up before I did, but if you remember in January, we talked about having about a negative 100, and I think it was 160,000.
Yep.
And so that, if somebody was doing a strict cash flow, you would carry over from one year to the next. I usually don't do that though, but I do want to remind you that that's something to be aware of. Again, whatever happened last year essentially ended up being covered one way or another, but it's still, you know, something to be concerned about. Again, it's not desperation, it's not mismanagement, but it is something to consider as we start to do the budget again this year. You know, really want to take a hard look at things. A lot of it too is changes that happen in personnel for various reasons that weren't included in the budget one way or another. You know, changes in the police department, changes with union contracts and things like that. So those are things to pay attention to when you're looking at the statements that the treasurer provides you.
I have a question, Steve. I noticed when I was signing the checks this month that the swimming pool water bill is really huge. And I spoke to Mr. Reamer about it. He indicated that they believe that we have some significant leakage in the pool due to caulking failure. And I wondered if we have a way to plan to abate that leakage for the coming season. I don't think we can do anything about it during the middle of the swimming season now, but it is like it's at $53,935 for this June, and $59,082 in July, which is a lot higher than it was last year for this comparable time. And I think if we're having significant leakage, we need to revisit our caulking policy and maintenance policy.
Well, actually, we did have leakage, and it's still not completely corrected, but we did have the company come in at the beginning of the year after the pool was filled, and they were able to temporarily seal some of the leakage that's there. So that was, you know, that's something that was a positive thing. I'm not showing that number that you were showing. How much were you showing for water?
I'm reading this off of the thing that you just sent us. It was page 2 of 3, and it's under swimming pool cash paid out. And it is the July and June 23 numbers that I just read you.
Oh, Well, that's the total pool.
I know it's the
59,000.
total pool, but when I was signing the checks, there was a bill for, over $5,000 for just water, and it usually isn't more than 800 or so in the
Well,
stock for the pool.
Through, okay, I did a preliminary report for myself to refer to tonight, through July 31st.
Mhm.
And water usage for the pool, budgeted 18,000.
Yep.
Spent 11,219 so far this year. Last year at this time was 12,392. So
Okay.
we did fix to an extent the leakage as best as it could be done with the water still in the pool.
Mhm.
We probably should have considered using the capital plan to do the caulking this year, but it really wasn't scheduled until next year, and I believe we do have that in the budget for
think-
next year, $20,000 for 2024 for pool caulking. And that should stay in there, and that should be something we do in the off season.
Okay,
Oh.
Mr. Weimer has his hand up. Do you want to speak to this issue, please?
I'm
Yeah, just
sorry.
letting you know that, we have been monitoring it, something that, we've been watching because we do know there was a leak. The leak has been slightly contained. It's probably dropped about 2,000 to 3,000 gallons a month since they did the repair. I believe that was in June, early June. And I did have Marianne and Richards out at the pool on Monday to take a look. They are the company that did the full caulking of the pool back in 2020. That was the last time we did a full-blown caulking. I did have Public Works on site with Mike and Phil, who maintained the pool for us. And we had long discussions with the guy at Marianne and Richards about how it was done last time. Trying to get some advice. I mean, because I obviously wasn't on site back in 2020, but Mike and Phil watched some of the repairs being done, and we're surprised, I guess, by the thickness of some of the caulking. And Marianne, the gentleman from Marianne and Richards, quoted that he's going to look into some product guidelines for an outdoor pool to see if there's anything new on the market that might seal this up and help us, rather than increasing the time spans to, as an example, 2 to 3 years, possibly coming up with new product and or thicker caulking joints to help sustain the joints longer, because he admitted that the joints aren't moving. The pool is pretty well built and established, especially considering it's a pour on top of a pour. And so from that standpoint, we're not seeing any movement. But at the same time, the caulk joint that is in the deep end, where it catches the most pressure, obviously, is where we're starting to see some failures. And we noticed even during that inspection on Monday, some new holes that have popped into the caulk joints since that time. And that's all based off the pressure of the pool, so of the water. So that is stuff that we're looking into, but it is something and a concern. But, as you stated, we're not going to do anything at this point. We have basically 3 more weeks left in the season. We'll run it out. And then the discussion became, when is the best time to do it? And Marianne and Richards stated that, it is their contention that it would be a good time in October to take care of that, because of the fact that, as we have seen historically, Aprils aren't the best month with regards to temperatures sinking through the evening. So that is something that, we're looking into, but that's also an expenditure that, I know requires in many cases 3 bids. So I pulled the file from 3 years ago and got the ball rolling to start getting those rolling in so that I could turn in a capital improvement with accurate numbers for what it's going to cost in 2023 or 2024, as opposed to what it was 14,000 and change back in 2020.
Now, my concern is that if we continue to have this leak, that it will undermine the concrete and then you get cracks and then you really have problems. So Angelo has a comment and then Mr. Watkins. Angelo?
Yes, with all due respect to Mr. Reamer, our council rules stipulate that council members will speak first, and then anyone else in the audience that may want to ask a question.
I apologize.
My comment is that we have discussed this situation, I believe, in some emails, et cetera, that we don't have a good program for the pool inspection. Caulking ought to be done every year. The inspection ought to be done before the pool is filled, and those sorts of things. So those things need to be looked at before we continue to have this problem. And it should be done by a professional pool maintenance company.
Thank you. Mr. Watkins?
My question is we had Mariani and Richards do this last year, and it seems like we have a disastrous results. Are they the only reputable company that does this?
I have no idea.
I'm not aware.
Not aware.
No. I mean, it's the only one that I believe we've used the last couple times. I mean, I've heard good things about them, but you know.
If council, excuse me, if council is all right with it, I would be willing to take some time and see if there are other companies that deal with problems like this.
Yeah.
And then report back to council.
Well, can I add one more thing? What you really should be doing, assuming it's going to cost over $20,000 or 21, is really advertising for bids. It shouldn't just be phone quotes or something like that. Now, if it's cheaper than that, then you can do that, but you advertise for bids and send it out to companies, but you also publish it in the paper. And that's the way you should go with it. And the problem, of course, as a government is when you do that, you have to go with a low bidder. That was a problem I thought that we had with the new building in some cases. You had to go with a low bidder. I would not have picked some of the people that, you know, that we use for things like that. So.
Well, we have to put the qualifications in the bid document sufficiently stringently that we
Yes.
can eliminate people who were just low bid for the sake of low bid. So I think I don't mean to harp on this, but I know this is the kind of expenditure that can blow up rather quickly if something serious fails. And failure of caulking that undermines the concrete can be significant. Okay, Mr.
I'm sorry, one other question. Was Mariani and Richards a low bidder on this last contract?
I would assume they were. I don't have that in front of me, so I can't tell you.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Reamer, you have something further to add? Does anyone else have a question first?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just simply wanted to state, to make sure Mr. Watkins understood, Marianne and Richards didn't work on the pool last year. Marianne and Richards worked on the pool in 2020. So at this point, 3 years ago, the company that came in this year was a professional diver that came in to do the repairs while the water was in the pool. And they were spot repairs that were done this year. To my knowledge, nothing was done last year. So the leakage has been something that has started 3 years ago. You're always going to have leakage in a pool. You're never going to stop it. It's not a one pour pool. It is cut up in multiple pieces. And as an example, between the shallow end and the deep end, between the shallow end and the 3.5 feet, there is about a 1.5 inch expansion joint that is in there that needs to be sealed. And that's a give or take, that's about a 2-inch, 3-inch drop between the surface and the next level below it. But like I said, I just wanted to make sure you understood. Mariana Richards wasn't involved last year. It was 3 years ago.
Well, we'll put that down as something we need to look at as we develop our budget and our work plan for the year, which I hope we do have a chance to have a look at. One other question, Mr. Morris, before we move off of this item. I have been concerned about our revenues being down. And I'm wondering, do we have any idea how much of that continues to be related to the assessment challenges?
Well, I've started getting some changes in assessed value again the last couple of weeks, but up until that time, I haven't seen anything change for several months because there was a freeze. So the school district apparently still, though, has been taking some people to the assessment department to claim that they should be assessed higher. And a couple that I've seen so far have gone up. But that's the extent of it.
So it's going to be a very slow process for that to shake its way out, because
Apparently, I mean, I'm not hearing anything more.
yeah, it's considerably lower than we were expecting. Revenue being down 381,000 is considerable.
Yeah.
All right, and we have completely allocated our ARPA relief funds, is that correct?
Well, that's the first part of it was to go to the sewer regionalization, the balance to the Westinghouse Lodge.
Okay,
And so, you know, if you, that's what council has agreed to, voted on.
okay.
Anybody else? My next item, just a reminder about capital improvements. Usually by this month, I would be giving you projects that were submitted, but for various reasons, I'm a little behind with that, and there's some people who still have to submit some projects to me. So I hopefully will have that to you in September at all the committees. And of course, everybody gets all of them, whether you're on that committee or not. But I will be getting that done. And I again want to repeat that I had asked, somebody had mentioned to me about asking Siemens. I had asked Siemens if they would give me a specific listing of things, and I still don't have that unless they think that what they're doing every couple of weeks is specific enough to tell me what I should be putting in capital. But that's not the way I had anticipated it when I spoke to them. Now, I'm not saying they're ignoring, I'm just saying that they're behind, and I was waiting on some of that stuff too. So in any case, that's the reason why I haven't got you any projects yet. I will say, though, that a lot of the projects that aren't being funded this year are going to continue. And that doesn't mean that the money is going to continue there. Don't forget that just because there's money budgeted doesn't mean that we had that money. It just means that that's what people thought it was valued at. So a lot of those projects that haven't started yet, when you get your monthly report from the treasurer and she shows you the capital side, those are going to continue into next year, probably, more than likely. So I will get you that soon. The third item I have, August is the month we start budget preparation for the new year. And I do that early, again, because I think it's good business practice to do that. Some communities don't, and others do similar to what we do. Some even start in July. But what I'm doing is tomorrow we'll have a staff meeting. I'm giving out copies of the form that I sent to you in a PDF version in an email today with the other agenda items. That includes a number of things. Maybe I'll pull that up real quick on my computer. Well, that's not the right one. That's not the right one. And I don't know what happened to it. It just disappeared. Oh, here we go. I gave you a memo that I give to staff that explains how we do the budget. And I developed a budget calendar like we do every year that shows essentially when deadlines are due. And it includes things that mainly also match up with a council committee meeting or council business meeting. And then I give them a sample. I know this is probably bigger than you can see, And unfortunately, with the way everything shows up on my screen here, I cannot shrink it. There we go, I think. I give everybody a sample form to use, and I ask people to give me their projection for 2024 and also projection for 2025, which is just a wild guess probably, but at least it gives us an idea of what people are looking at. People do not show me their budget for any wages related items or any fringe benefits or things like that. The treasurer does that for me when we get information from the various agencies as to what our, for example, pension obligations are and things like that. But everyone tomorrow in our staff meeting at 1:30 will get that. And if they're not there, I'll give that to them separately. I ask everybody to get me information by late September. And then the first time you see the first draft of the budget is in October at the Finance Committee meeting. You folks should also feel free to participate by working with the departments that are within your purview, or talking to me, or both. You might want to submit your own budget for certain things. If you like, that's certainly up to you too. I just need to have something in a timely fashion. At the late September, around the 25th is probably the best time for me to have it, so I can get it ready for a first draft. As always, my first draft will include a long memo that is my budget message that eventually gets translated into the budget book. So that's going to be happening starting tomorrow. And you folks all have the form. If anybody wants to submit one and would like all that stuff in Word format, so you can just type it in easily, I can get you that if you just email me and let me know. Otherwise, staff will probably be doing it with me as we go. Anybody have any questions about that?
Mr. Baoki, you have your hand up?
You're
You're
muted.
mu-
You're muted. Among the flowers, you're muted. Thank you.
Sorry. Did we get the copy for the capital budget for this year? The submissions, was that sent to council?
No, that's what I just mentioned in my previous item, capital improvements. I'm still waiting on some people to get me information. I have most of it, but
No,
I don't,
I don't mean submissions. I mean the forms to submit.
Oh,
yeah,
for the
back in
capital.
May. Back in May, we started that.
Okay.
I can give that to you in a Word version, though, again, if anybody wants to do that, and I encourage you, if you have your own project to submit, please do that.
Yes, please.
Okay, if I don't get it to you tomorrow, please send me an email, remind me, because as you all know, I'm old and my memory's going, so, you know. Anyway, so that's what's happening now. Of course, I gave you the budget preparation forms, realizing you wouldn't have a chance to look at them much today, but that's something we'll be talking about more the next few months. The last thing I did, I drafted an RFP for audit services based on one that I had drafted previously that Steve Corbel corrected substantially back in 2010 or 11, I believe. So I updated that because, as you know, Case Sabatini's last year for the audit is the 2022 audit. They do two audits. They do the one that has to go to DCED for the state, and that's been submitted to the state already. They do a second audit that they publish in a booklet, and I give copies of that to you, and we put it on our website. And that should have been done by now, but it's not. And that's something that we've been having happen a lot with them. So that's another reason why I suggest you put out an RFP. Take a look at the one I gave you. I hope that Mr. Corbel will also look at it and see if there's any changes he'd like to make. Again, most of that is the edits that he gave me from about 11 years ago. I don't know if he considered the need to much change or not, but in any case, I'd like to put this on the agenda to discuss in September so that we could then put something out so we can get responses from people in November. And we're going to obviously need somebody to do the 2023 audit starting in January of next year. So it'd be helpful to have an idea of who might do that.
Okay.
So please take a look at that.
Okay, I will look at that. I just got this today, Steve. I will have a look at it. And anyone else have comments on our auditor requirements? I know we've had Case Sabatini for a couple of years. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've had them for probably 7 or 8 audits.
Yeah.
And they've done okay, but they're late with stuff a lot. And the advantage that had happened back when we left Hosack Spec was that they were cheaper. Case Sabatini was cheaper.
Well, it's good to change auditors periodically anyway, just because you get into a real familiarity circle and it isn't as rigorous of an audit. So I think it's about time that we do this. Okay, Mr. Corbel, will you have a look at the audit RFP? And I will as well. Mr. Watkins, if you would cast an eye on it too, please. That would be helpful.
That's all I have.
Okay. There's a item here under the committee business report regarding a fence for Bright Park for $5,930 from Precision Fencing. Is that a quote, Mr. Morris?
I got that from Mr. Baoki, and we talked about that last week, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
So does that need affirming action from the finance committee?
Well, there was, as was mentioned last week, there was money that was still available in the fence budget. And it's close to what the estimate is. This estimate will likely be about $500 more because Mr. Thielacker said they required 2 additional gates to make that open up to a 10-foot opening so they can get some equipment in there when necessary. So I suggested to Mr. Morris that if we can continue and looking at that if there's additional money that was needed to move some of the money that theoretically is in our budget for signs and for the strips, for the rumble strips and or speed humps, and move that there to make up for the balance.
Ms. Martin, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Vice President DeMarco. I just wanted to mention that I feel strongly that we should consider this for next week for approval, given that I know the residents there are planning to come to council with a petition. They're really concerned about the safety of it. And if we have the funds available, I think it would be in our best interest to act on it for public safety. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Morris.
You can juggle the money however you'd like, but you probably could also just take it from capital, because we have not spent all the money that was allocated toward capital this year. Now, admittedly, we did not have 800-some thousand that the full budget was for 2023, but you know, we've only spent 201,000 out of the capital improvements plan so far. So the fence in particular number still has about $5,300 in it, approximately 5,000, let's say. So it's not necessarily a problem to just continue to use capital money if you want to keep that reserve for signs. I looked at that after we talked, and I just wanted to make sure that I added that tonight.
I think it would be more appropriate as a capital item, because this fence theoretically is going to last more than a year or two if it's properly installed. So it probably is more appropriate to put it under the capital budget than in the operating budget if we have the funds available to do that. So could you please verify that, Mr. Morris, and put it on action for Finance Committee at the business meeting if we have the funds available?
Right.
So
I'll do that.
from capital budget. Okay, any other comments on that? Okay. I did receive a communication from a resident regarding the steps on Woodside Road that intersects the top and the bottom half. And I saw that there was a barricade closing those steps for a period of time. Can you explain to me what possibly was going on there, Mr. Morris? Do you know
Yeah, we
any-
had a complaint that there was debris and some unevenness there. We cleaned up the debris. Before we did that, of course, he Jim blocked it off. And then he told me about the unevenness that's there. And he suggested that we might want to keep it with a sign indicating there is,
No matter if there's a sign,
danger
or
there.
not, kids run up and down those steps all the time.
Well,
That's
I-
one of the ones that's slated for our active transportation plan grant. And I
Yeah.
would like to move on those things as soon as we can, because we do have school kids running up and down those steps.
well, yeah, I understand that. You put a sign there, though, to protect the borough from liability. And if people decide to go around it anyway, there's not much you can do about it.
Well, it is an actively used stairway in many.
May I
situations.
speak?
Yes. Hi, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I agree that little path is widely used, not by school kids, but by adults, and it's good to fix it. But for the liability purposes, that thing is extremely dangerous.
Mhm.
And so to just let it open without a warning that it's unwise to use, I think that's opening the borough to liability. It may be inconvenient, but I think we have to remain having a sign there until the thing is repaired. Thanks.
And that's under the grant that McMahon's working on, correct?
That is correct,
Yeah,
and I
okay.
think they have received an authorization to proceed that crossed my desk earlier this week. So I hope we can get that moving now that grant is in hand. And did you find the documents that you required to authorize work going forward on that?
Me? I
Yeah,
signed
you did.
anything I was given, yes.
Okay, all right, good. All right, is there anything else for this committee that anyone wishes to bring up? Okay, if not, we will move to the committee of the whole.
Okay, give
And-
me a minute, please.
Yep.
Just want to finish my note for finance. Okay,
Right,
all right, I'm ready for committee
Okay.
of the whole.
proceed.
Okay, I just have a couple of reminders and odds and ends, nothing necessarily critical here. First, a reminder on Chalfont. I put some data down here from the agreements only just to help you understand or remember what's going on there. There's nothing that has to happen with Chalfont necessarily, but you have in both contracts, police and public works, the ability to terminate by notifying either party by September 1st. So I always call that to your attention in August. Should you for some reason want to terminate, I'm not recommending you do necessarily. I'm just letting you know that. Then that's the reason why you would want to be aware of that and then vote on the 16th to send a directive to Chalfont saying that you want to terminate. I don't know of any reason to do that, but I'll at least want to make sure you were aware that that's what's in the agreement as far as the schedule is concerned.
Okay. Ms. Martin,
I just wanted to double check, Mr. Morris. Are we still including the 17,677 equipment charge for Chalfont under Public Works? I didn't see it noted here.
Oh, well, I just cut out just enough to show the basic agreement. I didn't put there's other numbers in there that show overtime and
Okay,
special events and things like that. I just wanted to give you something in case you asked how much. The other reason why I gave that to you is if you remember, the Public Works was left hanging because the contract had not been settled. I'm not sure that's the first time we've had that happen. I'm not exactly sure what you want to do there. What I would suggest maybe is whoever is in charge of negotiation may want to just touch base with Allison when she returns from vacation, have her do a projection out as far as costs are concerned, as far as salaries are concerned, and then you might want to then notify Chalfont, this is the number that we want to 24 for Public Works. But that's, other than the possibility of terminating, that's the only other thing that's critical there.
Mr.
And-
Morris, I believe the idea was we didn't know what the percentage of raise that our Public Works would have because they hadn't signed their contract yet, but Mr. Erbaldinger can certainly verify that.
right,
Okay.
yeah, would you make a note
Does
to
any,
get an update on that? Because we need to know whether we're going to terminate this agreement or whether we're going to execute both of them. I really think we should continue to be partners with them if we can. But I would want to verify that we have the Public Works and the police operating in tandem.
Well, he got a copy. I did send him a copy of this, all the stuff, so he's aware of this once he reads it.
Okay.
Anybody else? Item B, waste management. The first 2 years of our 5-year contract were covered. We had 2 years that we had agreed to, and then 3 option years. So the third option year starts with the new year. You can either ask the solicitor to rebid all of it, or you can pick up the option year for the third year. As far as having waste management continue, you
Mr.
have to let them know. You have to let them know 60 days in advance, so you have time. You have time to research it, to let Mr. Corbel take a look at it, to look at the numbers and all that. But again, I didn't want to wait till the last minute to let you know. So technically, you have till the end of October to make a decision. And then usually what happens is you vote at a meeting in September or October to have myself or Allison or somebody send them a letter indicating that we're accepting the next option year, if that's the way you want to go.
Mr. Lawrence, do you have a recommendation on this? I know you were heavily involved in that contract.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'd like to check with Mr. Corbel, but my perception is we'd be smarter to stick with the contract and not go out for bid again. I'm not sure I see any value in going out for bid a second time.
I did receive a communication from the Pennsylvania Resources Council about offering glass recycling services in Forest Hills. We can have them come and talk to us about that. It would not displace the waste management contract, but it might give some additional options for recycling within our community. Would you have any interest in hearing from them?
Yeah, why don't you have them call me directly?
Okay.
Because I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Okay, I will have them call you.
Thanks, that'd be great. Thank you.
By the way, I agree with Mr. Lawrence. It probably doesn't make sense to advertise for bids again, but that's up to you. So
yeah, this is Steve. I concur as well.
Okay. Unless you tell me not to, I am going to just continue this on this agenda until you decide to say, yes, we're going to vote on extending it or no. So this item C is probably something I should just shut up about. I don't know. But originally I was supposed to possibly go to a conference in October. And that's the ICMA conference in Austin, Texas. For a number of reasons, I'm not going to go. So I want to let you know the dates that you had selected for the meetings in October were the 10th, 17th, and the 25th. I want to make sure you were aware of this in case you wanted to make a change in any meeting dates for October, if you felt that was too late or not good. I know that the only other conflict that happens early October, which I know Ms. DeMarco is going to talk about later, is the PA Municipal League Summit that happens starting on the 5th of October through the 8th. But that wouldn't conflict with anything anyway necessarily. So just something to consider. If you wanted to do that, we'd have to advertise new dates. I just want to let you know that I'm not going in case for some reason you want to switch back if you don't like those dates. And if nobody tells me anything about it, I'm not going to include this on a future agenda. If anybody has any concerns, email me and let me know, and I'll keep it on the agenda, or we can make a change at the meeting in August or September.
Does anyone see any reason why we change the dates at this point? I see no need to re-advertise unless it's a big, okay. We'll just leave it as is, Steve.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure people are aware to have that flexibility. Item D, CDBG funding. We talked about this last week, and it was requested that Kevin from LSSE take a look at at what they typically recommend. And they gave me the information you see at the top there, structure demolition, and ADA improvements. Now, two things I want to say about this. First is that Kevin investigated with Molly Valentine from the COG, and she told him now that demolition may be back online and acceptable for use of CDBG money. Previously, though, they had, in an email that she had sent us, they told us no. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that, but unless Don Branzel or Dave Naylor has some property in question that they recommend to be demolished, I don't know of anything of immediate need to do that. Now, I do know that Kevin, actually, I think Walt spoke to somebody else over there, maybe it wasn't Kevin, about projects that could be done for recreation. And one of the things they both agreed on was the pool locker rooms, because there is handicapped accessibility needs in both locker rooms, really. In fact, the women's locker room we've had a problem with for a number of years. If you recall, there is a line item in the capital budget, correct capital improvements plan that talks about doing something with the women's locker room in their changing area. So because it's ADA, that would be something that would probably be accessible. Now, Walt's not on here to talk about it anymore, but I know that he and representative from LSSE, along with Kevin, did discuss that as a possibility. They also threw out new restroom facility, putting one at Cook Park, and I suggested if they were going to do that, they might want to consider a completely new restroom at the main park too. But Kevin, after talking with I believe the COG, doesn't believe that would fly with the county because the other one's more ADA related and these two aren't necessarily. So if you wish to consider any of this, they have to do a pre-application by September 11th. You have a little bit of time, but since usually this goes with our engineer going to the COG, I would suggest if you want to go along with any of that, especially the recommendation that Walt and LSSE have come up with for the locker rooms, you probably should decide to tell them go ahead with that at the August 16th meeting.
Okay, Angelo.
May I?
Angelo, oh, Jack first, and then Angelo, and then Barb.
No, please, Angela, go first.
Oh, okay, thank you. Mr. Morris, I was just going to suggest the same thing you brought up about the restrooms at the main park. I'm not sure why they wouldn't be ADA compliant, fall into that category, but that would seem like it would be a good use of the money.
Yeah, I agree. The main park does seem like it. I mean, yeah, supposedly it's accessible, but it's accessible barely. I mean, if it is, so.
I think you can characterize it as improving ADA accessibility in the main park.
I'll bring that up with Walt and LSSE, and depending on how the discussion goes tonight here before we finish, I'll have something that I could put on the August 16th agenda one way or another.
Hey, Barb?
I was just going to say I like the idea of having the pool locker room be one of the places that was suggested.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Morris, is the limit of the amount of money would probably mean we have to do one or the other. Is that right?
Well, they've just expanded. I mean, I don't know how much money for sure is available to us because the COG has a number of communities in it that's larger than other COGs.
Yeah.
And so consequently, they rotate through communities. And at one time, they were telling us they were going to guarantee us $20,000, depending on the amount of money available. In this case, it's $20,000 was available. But now we were told in a recent email from the COG that the county will only accept a minimum of a $50,000 project. I'm not exactly sure.
Minimum, we can maybe ask what it would cost to do both the pool ADA accessibility improvements and to upgrade the restrooms in the main park. Because if the minimum is 50,000, maybe we can go for enough money to do both of those upgrades.
Okay, I'll check again with
Okay.
LSSE and Walt.
Yeah, because I would hate to have to choose between them when both of them are really in the same category of need and would be significant improvements for those facilities in both cases. If we had to choose, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my question was, the pool area is the most widely used, is that correct? Pool locker rooms?
Probably, especially critical times of the years, the summer.
Okay,
Other than that, it's
So-
not, you know, but
but when it's used heavily.
yeah, I would say so.
Okay. My thought would be, if it's not ADA compliant or sufficiently ADA compliant, the money should go there. It would be most appropriate. Second, I think it would be a little questionable for us to pour money into another place when that's the one that's used most of the time. That might appear odd, if you know what I mean.
I think
Okay,
let's
if
find
that's-
out whether there's a limit on what we can apply for, and, you know, we could possibly put in both and give justification for that.
Yeah,
And then-
I'll ask LSSE. They've been talking with the COG already. I'll ask LSE to pursue that further. And if 50,000 could accommodate both issues, then to go ahead with both. If not, to go ahead with the pool locker room, and I would put a motion on the agenda under borough property next Wednesday to authorize you to have the LSSE go ahead and prepare all the documents necessary for that, for whichever. If that's okay with you folks.
Okay.
Okay, the rest of that stuff from D there is just my notes from
We did
before. There
decide-
will also,
We
there
did
will also,
decide to opt into the CBD.
yeah, there will also be a resolution for an opt-in to CDBG that will be on your agenda next week as well, so. Okay, my last item, other than just some reminders after that, is rodent baiting. I had gotten a quote from Debug, and again, I went with them. There's another one called Rent to Kill. I'm not sure if that's how you say that, but that's what it looks like to me, so that's how I'm saying it. But they seem to be more Eastern than Western. Debug was Western. And so because they were in CoStars, I started with them. Now, what they essentially have is an agreement. The contract is really to give to the municipalities to use on their own properties for rodent and other pest control. It's not necessarily to do what you want to do and have them go out to households, but because it's kind of fuzzy there, I think still it's a CoStars possibility. But what their typical priority and agreements are like are featured around residential, which is why that agreement that I gave you looks the way it does. I did explain to them what we were looking to do, that we had various residents in some locations that were complaining about rats, and we wanted to have essentially the borough hire them as a contract employee to go out and bait as needed on the various properties, and then the borough would cover the bill. So I'm not exactly sure which way you want to go, but I do want to ask the solicitor, Mr. Corbel, a couple of things, including if he sees any problems with that kind of a setup with a separate company like Debug. And if he does, and we don't use CoStars, or we want to get a more directed specification operation for these contractors, should we then advertise for bids and provide detailed specifications about what we're looking for?
Yeah, well, Mr. Morris, I don't think that we would need to advertise as long as the cost of the service would fall, within the bidding guidelines issued by the state, which I think it's over 20,000 at this point, and I'd be surprised if these types of services would cost that much over the course of the year. So I'm fine with you making calls, explaining what you need and having them submit proposals or bids, if you will. And that's not to say you can't advertise, but it doesn't sound to me like it's legally required, given what you're looking for.
Okay, I guess I asked this last time, and I'm pretty sure I'm on the right track, but I would just like to ask again from council's perspective. What I'm describing to debug is correct. We want to have somebody available whenever people call to complain about rats that will go out at our direction and bait that particular property and then go and collect dead rats or whatever after they've done that. And this is essentially substituting what we used to do in-house with an employee or with a private company instead, who would be taking on that exact same thing, going out, baiting a particular property, sending the bill to the borough pays it, and then the next time somebody does that, same thing happens. Or if there are 5 people that do it, each one of them gets baited by that company. That's my understanding. And if that's the case, debug's proposal isn't necessarily too far out of line then, because we would be picking up that tab, not the resident. So does anybody have any more specification related to that, or any comments on debug in general in that agreement?
Yes, the only thing that I saw that was odd, everything that they would do in their proposal sounds reasonable, except they looked like they were also looking for a contract to do it on a recurring basis for a year, which would be something that they would propose to a household. So I think if we can eliminate that part of it, I think that would work.
Okay. So we want them just to do it spot as we ask them and have an agreement with us just for that, but not what I see what you're saying, that they would come out and bait or put something out for a whole year,
Yes.
like they do with bug control in the borough building or something like that. Okay, I will check with debug and see, and if they're okay with it, I'll put them on the agenda to approve. If they're not, or if there's any problems, I'll carry this into September, but I'll try to get a response. And if I see it seems to be that debug has a problem with it, I will pursue the other company that's under CoStars, and I'll look at some other ones too. Anybody else have anything else for me? Because I don't have anything else to report on.
Okay, I have 2 items I wish to speak to. One is under the committee business report. We have a solicitor's report first. Mr. Corbel, do you have anything to report to us this evening?
Yeah, no, I really don't. Most of the things are executive session items we can talk about next Wednesday. I will just note that the draft solar ordinance has been transmitted to the county, and we're awaiting comments there. Everything else I think we can address in executive session, unless anybody has a question or item for me to address at this time.
Any specific questions for our council? Hearing none. I would like to address the item of the local share, statewide local sharing agreement account grant opportunity, which is open from September 1st through November 30th. We are an eligible applicant. There is no match requirement, but there also is no administrative overhead cost allowed in the grant. It allows for projects in the public interest, as noted here, that improve the quality of life in the community, and it covers acquisition as well as construction, demolition, infrastructure, purchase of vehicles, machinery, equipment, and so on. I would like to suggest to you something that may be sounding a little outrageous, but every time you talk to business people or people down in our community, they talk about the lack of parking in the business area on Ardmore Boulevard. I would like to suggest that we explore the purchase of the lot adjacent to the Speedy Mart, which is currently vacant and owned by the owner of the Speedy Mart. to acquire that as a public parking facility into which we could eventually put an electric vehicle charging station. I would like to know if anyone has any thoughts about that. It would be a significant addition to the business community and could be accompanied by some additional changes in flexible use of the existing public parking and allow us to take parking off of the street on Ardmore Boulevard, which is very dangerous. I have a flurry of hands in the air, and I will entertain them in the order received. Mr. Baiocchi and then Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Marco. Yeah, I believe that's a great idea. In fact, I had suggested that to the Community Alliance,
Yes.
but they haven't followed through to my knowledge yet. I checked out what that property had cost. I think it's recently valued at about $100,000 for that property. And it's owned by a company that's not necessarily local, but toward the eastern part of the state. And they're mostly in business to, for gas, fast food, that sort of thing. And perhaps at this point in time, maybe they'd like to unload that property. So might be a good time.
It's auspicious. Ms. Martin.
I had a question. If we acquire the property, would we then charge for parking, and that would be a source of revenue?
I think we could determine that when and if that happens. I think there are multiple opportunities to do that. Either have it, free parking or charge parking, or, charge for the electrical vehicle charging or whatever. The main thing is we could get the unsafe parking off of those 12 spaces that are on the street. I know when we were doing the active transportation plan field study in that area, we looked in detail at how many spaces would fit in that space, and we could completely displace the on the edge of the street parking on Ardmore Boulevard into that space with no further need for parking in the street. And it's only a block away from those areas. So I think it would be a good fit. And I would also like to recommend that we evaluate the conversion of our dedicated parking zoning ordinance into flexible parking zoning ordinance in the business district to encourage multiple uses of those parking spaces. If you monitor the occupancy of the parking in places like the Commonwealth Bank or the Taco Bell, or some of those places that are right abutting the Ardmore Boulevard area, they're for the large part empty during the majority of the day. There's also the issue of people who have residences, and their time of occupying their parking spaces is different than the time that might be open and available for commercial use. So we need to look at that situation and revisit those recommendations in the active transportation plan about alleviating some of the safety conditions regarding the parking situation on Ardmore Boulevard in the business district. This grant might give us some options that we might not otherwise have. I'd be happy to help work on it. I don't know, Mr. Morris, if they need a letter of intent, but we have a couple of months to explore what might be involved there. Jack, did you wish to say something? It's hard to tell when you're on the phone.
No, I was just going to say, let's not get the cart in front of the horse here. I think your suggestion we explore the buying of that property is a very good idea. The other things probably are separate from that particular issue, and let's not get them conflated, because the simple issue of trying to see if we can buy that property on its own, I think, is a very good idea, and let's not mix the two up. All may be very good ideas, but let's keep them separate.
Yep. Let's see here. Issues moved from other committees. The cost estimates for, let's see, the Vascar lines. We have,
Yeah, that was me.
and is that resolved, or do we need to discuss that some more?
No, we recently received that one estimate. I tried to get several, but as you know, the lines that were there were removed. That's Route 30 and the Centurion, and they never got put back we would like to have, again, with the discussion with the chief, he would like to have several other locations in addition to those, one near Avenue B and also one going toward the Parkway near Lafayette. And it would cost $5,000. We do not have the capability of painting those lines in-house. We don't have the equipment or the type of paint to make that happen. So I'm suggesting that if we have money, we do this again. I'd be willing to suggest that we move some money out of one of the sign fund to pay for this if necessary.
Now, I don't know if we require DOT to authorize that because it's a state road. I know we can't just go out and paint them at our own will, but I think we may need to have authorization from the DOT, and we should probably investigate that before we proceed with this.
Yes, I think that's prudent. My understanding was we did not need them, but again, it wouldn't hurt to find out.
Well, painting stripes on a state road, I think Anna Grodnik would want to have something to say about it. So possibly a call to her might be relevant. I can do that if you want.
If you have access to that person.
Yep. Okay. Right. Anyone else have comment on that item? Hearing none. There is a discussion about the sewer Vector truck. Is there a question for the solicitor requiring a new intergovernmental agreement regarding this? Whose item is that? This is Public Works.
There's an item before that.
I'm sorry. Oh, Westinghouse Lodge cost estimates. I apologize. I have no information on this. Barb.
We received an expense report from Mr. Brett late in the day, which included, Mr. Morris, would you be able to share your screen? I'm sorry, you're muted.
I'm getting it up here in a second. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's okay.
Uh,
But I was very happy to see it. There we go. Okay. We're starting off with the repair of the roof. And then we're continuing down. We're also getting the new skylights replaced. I think there's a second page.
oh, sorry. Oh, no, that's all that I got from the.
Okay,
all-
that's the old one. That's from June.
Oh,
Another one was sent today.
yeah, that's the one I copied, I thought. Because I looked at that's exactly what I had from your email, Barb, because I double checked the number before I downloaded it. And it was the same amount, 339.
No, there was a new one sent later today from Steve, or I'm sorry, yeah, from Steve to us, from Kevin. And some of the figures changed. So for
Okay.
instance,
Let me take a look and see if
okay.
I have it. But go ahead if you want to talk about it.
okay, well, it's just, we had to do some different changes with some of the requests we made. So the roof did go up to 319,000. The additional skylights are 3,600. We're also getting quotes for an HVAC contractor, a new high efficiency and electric water heater. And that total was 460,000. But since this was all coming from ARPA funds,
But I think that's, how much did we have left in the ARPA funds for this?
800,000.
All right.
Well, no, I don't think it was 800,
No.
but it's a lot of money.
Okay, 6 and 200 was coming from somewhere else. Wait, I think you received this. I'm sorry if I'm saying something that isn't, okay, let's see. Yes, that came in, late today at 3:45, Steve. And it went to, you, and, CC was myself, President Dinger, and Mr. Burley.
Let me see if I can get this on the screen. Problem is, I'm getting it from my computer at work, and it's not letting me share.
Ms. Martin, can you share your screen perhaps and bring that up?
I can get you an okay to share, Barb, if you want.
Wait, then I'd have to download it to the
Oh.
computer, correct?
You have to download to your desktop.
Right. Okay, let me do that. Okay. I'm doing that. Okay, I've done that.
Okay, I have you set up to share.
Okay. I've never done that. If someone can talk me through it, I'd be happy to.
Hit share screen. And it should bring up your
Okay.
desktop, and then you click on the item you want to share, and it should go up for all of us. Is the item open on your desktop?
Probably not. I can do that.
Okay, we'll put the item on your desktop and open it, and then hit share screen, and you should have all the items that are on your desktop open.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes the firewall blocks it, so.
Barb, I think I got it.
Is that it? Is it showing up?
You have to open it.
Okay, I'm looking at it unless this is from Mr. Morris.
No,
Okay, then if you have it, okay, it says you are screen sharing, stop sharing. And it was opened.
okay,
But we
wow.
saw it wasn't open. We just saw a list.
All right, wait a second. I think I have it here. See if it will let me share. Share. Is this it?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, Well, there are some updated figures because we added different things onto the from the original quote. Again, though, the skylights are included. The roof has changed to 319,000. The skylights are 3,600. If we could go to the next page, Mr. Morris.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And again, it's the HVAC system and the electric, high efficiency electric gas, not gas, gallon water heater, 40-gallon water heater, and that's 460,000. So I would like to have this moved on for a vote at next week's meeting, if there's no questions.
I'd just like to verify that Mr. Morris, that we have this within the funding that was available from the ARPA funds. I believe it is.
ARPA, yes,
I want to verify that.
yes.
Okay, any objections to having that moved for action on next Wednesday? Mr. Bayoki, you have a question?
Yeah, just one question. Were there some other things that were discussed for the Westinghouse Lodge that'll be carried over to another or to the next year? Or did this include everything that we were looking at?
No, there were changes on the roof because the splits, we have to prepare for having those additional glass walls come in. So there had to be some different setup for heating and air conditioning those rooms. There's also, we're looking at getting the fence repaired, of course, during the year. The chimneys coming down and the new bathrooms as well. But this was just to get us started. We pretty much have to decide on it in order to have parts to come in to have this repairs done before the winter. Did I answer your question, Mr. Bioki?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding this matter? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the sewer Vector truck. There's a question for the solicitor on this regard, Mr. Corbel.
Yeah, my view is, not to give the typical lawyer answer, but it depends. I think it should be reviewed and revisited, and if there is a change in circumstance or anything else, we probably would want to revisit the intergovernmental cooperation agreement. Fortunately for us, the law changed a few years ago, so it just has to be adopted by resolution. It used to have to be adopted by an ordinance, which made it a little more difficult. So, yeah, I think my short answer would be maybe, and let's talk and go through the process and take a look at the old one and decide what's best for the borough.
Okay, Mr. Morse, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mentioned to Rebecca that you folks were talking about tonight. She did indicate that on the 14th, they're going to be discussing it during their board meeting. They believe that we probably do need a new intergovernmental cooperation agreement, but she hasn't talked to her solicitor yet. I told her I was going to bring it up with Mr. Corbel tonight. So I'm not sure what he will say, he or she. I'm not exactly sure who they have. But they right now are looking at some kind of a lease purchase type thing over at least 3 years. I'm not exactly sure beyond that what you folks want to do, but they're interested in trying to at least come to some determination on Monday night at their meeting. I explained to her that we talk. So if you have any specific direction that you want to give me before, let me know. Otherwise, I would suggest that this is something else we should discuss either in exec session if that's appropriate, or at the meeting on the 16th, once we know where Wilkins, what Wilkins board has discussed and is leading for.
Okay. All right, well, we'll wait for a report back from them on Monday then. And Mr. Corbel, you can talk to their counsel and we can see where we go from here. Okay.
Sounds good. Yep.
Did you, is that an exec session item though? Am I correct in that?
I would think that would be the
Okay.
case.
All right.
Yes, yeah, we could do it there.
This would be Environmental Advisory Council report. Is there any report? Comments?
I do have just one comment. I believe if they either have submitted or will be submitting a request to expend some funds for the purchase of a permanent sign. Not sure if they've done that and whether or not that needs any approval by council or if they can just submit that to Mr. Morris.
What sign? What for?
They're going to be using these sandwich board signs. They've come up with a logo for the Environmental Advisory Council and to use those when they're going to have meetings and that sort of thing for informational purposes.
Wonderful. Okay.
What this had come up with in that, I indicated to her that I can't just authorize spending money on something like that. That has to be authorized by council. Because what they wanted to do was have somebody go out, charge it on their credit card or whatever, or pay for it, and then submit it for reimbursement. And I wasn't going to approve something because I don't know what it's going to say. They didn't give me any information at all other than that. So this is the first I've heard that much detail, even from Mr. Baoki on it. And I did indicate, and Annette did let that gentleman know that the only council can authorize spending money. They can't just spend money without it, somebody here discussing it. Now, if you in committee are saying, sure, go ahead, let Steve decide whatever, and don't worry about it, that's fine. But at least it has to be something that you folks review.
Well, they should have sent you exactly what they were planning to do. That's my that was my admonition to them, is that they should talk to you and should give you any information on what they wanted to purchase. So
Yeah, I don't have that, so.
I'll get back to them.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah. If we allow one committee to do this, we're going to have to allow every committee to do this. Is that where we want to go?
We do have some budget for various committees and councils, advisory boards of the council. And I don't know whether they've expended their allocation for the year or not. I think theirs was something like $8,000 or
Yes.
something like that.
Well, they are the only board that requests a specific allocation every year. And that's something that's new as of about 2 or 3 years ago. They never did that before. Whoever was on it at that time never did that before. So, since about 2 years ago now, they've requested money for decks and et cetera. And because it's new to me, I don't feel it's just something I could say, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. But because I do that and then somebody else doesn't like it, and then it's my fault that I did that. And I'm not worried
Sure.
about fault. I'm just talking about it from the point of view of you folks are the ones who can authorize money being spent, or you can tell me to say, yes, go ahead. I can't just something brand new, take something brand new and just say, yes, I'm going to okay it. That's not the way I've operated at all
Sure.
since I've been here.
Well,
May I ask?
two former members of the Environmental Advisory Council began the process of submitting a budget request for different items such as mailing postcards and literature and those sorts of things. They shall go unnamed. But yeah, so that's why they've continued to submit a budget request for
Yeah.
those sorts of things.
Well, yeah,
All of those
and
requests were
you guys review the budget and you approve a budget every year. So technically you're approving that. And if they say to me, we want to now spend the money on postcards or whatever they've already had approved, I can say, sure. But this sign is not something that was included in it. And I'm assuming it's going to be a very wonderful, nice, beautiful sign, but I don't know that it's not going to have something I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna have on it. I just, I bet maybe it's me not trusting. Maybe it's old age again. I don't know. But anyway,
Mr.
know-
Lawrence's point, I wanted to just say that when we have put requests forward through the Environment Advisory Council in the past for things like postcards and mailings, they were attached to things like pursuing the climate action plan, public engagement process, and pursuing various other things, and detailed plans for the use of those materials and monies were always sent to council before expenditures were made attached to those plans. I think that was also the case when Ms. Martin was running various things through the council as well. So this isn't like every committee does this with impunity at any time. I mean, certainly if they are willing to put forward a request that's attached to a plan of action of some sort, we'd be happy to consider it at that time.
No, I agree. You're correct. I was simply asking a question, and the more I hear, I agree with you. Thank you.
All right, anything further? Mr. Fiocchi, I presume you will communicate to your counterparts or your comrades on the EAC regarding the need for an explanation for the expenditure and what it's used for, et cetera.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Tree and Shrub Committee report, do we have any input from them at this time?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, I have one thing with the permission of my peers. I would like to let you know that the EOS Energy company is having a series of community listening sessions associated with their community engagement process and to develop a community benefit plan as they're going forward with the expansion of their facility in Turtle Creek. And there will be 6 sessions, all of them from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. with refreshments provided in the various communities that are partnering together on this project. Monday, the 14th in Braddock, Tuesday in Turtle Creek, Thursday in North Braddock, Friday, the 18th will be in Forest Hills, right in our borough building at 5:30 to 7:30. Monday, the 21st in East Pittsburgh, and August 22nd in Rankin. I would really encourage all of you to attend if you can on the 18th. Right at our borough building from 5:30. I don't think we'll go as far as 7:30. We should be done by 7. But this is an important opportunity to say what kinds of things would be beneficial to have in a community benefit agreement. They are required to provide 20% of their, per $1 million, 20% to the communities engaged with them in this project in the immediate vicinity of their expansion of their manufacturing facility. And we are definitely right in the corridor involved with this. I don't know what kinds of things you might want to bring up, but things that are, to my mind, relevant in this regard would be having our microgrid provided with a battery so that we could test the ability to show resilience of the grid in our own community business district. That's one direct benefit that we could get from this. They have discussions about providing free energy audits and assistance with installing solar on residential and small commercial buildings. There is an interest in improving public transit, especially for working people who may be coming to their plant, and the corridors and bus stops, as you know, along both Greensburg Pike and Brinton Road in our town are woefully inadequate. So those are the kinds of things we might want to bring up. So I would like to encourage you to come and be involved in this discussion, Ms. Martin.
I'm sorry, I had another item I wanted to bring up, if that was okay with you. Sorry.
Okay, as soon as we, or any of you think you'll be interested and able to come on the 18th? Nobody's interested or able.
Were there other days? The 18th is my anniversary.
You can come on any of those days, the 14th, 15th, 17th, 18th, or 21st or 22nd. There are going to be listening sessions in all 6 communities. And I will post this in the council chamber and send around a direct invitation to all of you. I just got this material today, so.
I'll try to make one of those days.
Okay, and any of you who have availability and interest, I would appreciate your participating in this process. Okay, Ms. Martin.
Thank you. I just wanted to announce that Mr. Bioki had contacted again, Mr. Saranic, if I'm saying his name correctly, as part of the Deer Management Subcommittee. We have a firm date for the Deer Management Outreach Meeting with our residents. That is Monday, September 18th. And we were hoping to have it at the Borough Building. But Mr. Morris, you had said perhaps you thought maybe we would need a different venue. I'm not sure how many people we would expect or if you had concerns with that.
Well, I mean, certainly, yes, you could do it at the Borough Building if you want that. I was just saying that I assume it's going to be a pretty big crowd. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. And you'd want to use go somewhere else.
When Congressman Doyle came and gave a briefing, we had over 100 people in there and it was no problem. So I think the AV situation is much better in the Borough Building than any of the other places we would be able to have a meeting. Because you can put things on the screen and so forth.
Well, the other nice thing is Mr. Zaranic's boss would like to use this as a training session, and therefore the borough won't be billed for this. Typically, they charge to come and speak. So if you can, please write that date down. If you have concerns about deer management, they will be explaining the state's position and some other valuable information. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. And thank you for your work on that, both you and Angelo. I appreciate it. All right, anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none, I will adjourn this meeting and I thank you all for your attention and your diligence in pursuing all of this wonderful stuff. Have a lovely evening, okay?
Okay, thank you.